Every neighborhood has one house that doesn't belong. One door the rest pretend not to see. Behind that door lives a story they whisper about, but never truly understand. For years, Erica's home was that house, the one neighbors avoided, the one judged, pitied, and dismissed. But what they didn't know was that the woman they looked down on was quietly building an empire right under their noses. Because sometimes the people they underestimate are the ones destined to rise highest. This isn't just a story about revenge or redemption. It's a story about what happens when grace meets grit, when struggle turns into strength, and when the tables finally turn on the people who thought they were untouchable. So before you decide who belongs and who doesn't, listen to what really happened inside the house everyone used to whisper about. The steering wheel creaked beneath her tightening grip. The old faux leather cracked and sun-worn from years of struggle. Erica inhaled deeply, steadying her trembling hands as she turned into the narrow driveway of what would now be called home. It wasn't grand, not like the houses that surrounded it with their trimmed hedges and glossy SUVs parked like trophies. But to her, that modest single-story house was a monument. A small, hard-won victory carved from years of quiet battles no one saw. The afternoon light shimmered across the manicured lawns of the neighborhood, painting a false serenity over a world that judged more than it welcomed. Children's laughter drifted through the air, carefree, privileged, belonging. The faint scent of fresh-cut grass mingled with gasoline and summer heat, and for a fleeting moment, Erica let herself believe this was a new beginning. "A clean slate, Mom, look! They have a basketball hoop!" Her son, Deason, burst out of the car before she'd even turned off the engine, his voice filled with excitement that innocence still allowed. His sneakers hit the pavement with an energy she envied, hope unburdened by fear. She smiled softly, eyes stinging with pride. "Yeah, baby," she murmured. "Looks like we're finally home." But fresh starts rarely come gift-wrapped in peace. The illusion broke almost instantly. Across the street, two figures stood like sentinels, a man and woman, both dressed in the kind of quiet wealth that demanded to be noticed. The woman's perfect blonde bob caught the sunlight like glass, and her lips moved toward her husband in a whisper that made his expression tighten. His eyes flicked to Erica's car, the faded, dented Honda that had carried her through every storm. And in that single look, she felt it, the judgment, the unspoken sentence, "You don't belong here." She busied herself unloading boxes, pretending not to notice, though her heartbeat betrayed her calm exterior. The cardboard scraped her palms raw as she carried box after box, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her falter. Behind her, Deason ran circles around the driveway, narrating imaginary games, blissfully unaware of the eyes that dissected his every move. Inside, the air smelled faintly of dust and promise. The walls were bare, but the silence was warm, the kind that doesn't echo with shouting or regret. "It's perfect, Mom," Deason said, dropping his backpack with a thud in the center of the living room. Erica ruffled his hair, forcing a smile that reached her eyes for the first time in a long while. "It's ours," she whispered. That night, as the boxes lay half unpacked and the hum of the refrigerator filled the small house, the doorbell rang. Erica hesitated, wiping her hands on her jeans before opening the door. There she was, the woman from across the street. The blonde. Her smile stretched tight, polite, but sharp enough to cut. "Hi, I'm Brenda Henderson," she announced, extending a manicured hand. "We live right over there." She gestured to the immaculate two-story home adorned with stone pillars and floral arrangements that looked too perfect to be real. "I'm Erica," she replied, shaking her hand. Brenda's perfume was expensive, the kind that lingered long after the person left. "Well," Brenda continued, eyes flicking over Erica's simple t-shirt and worn jeans, "welcome to the neighborhood. We're having a homeowners association meeting tomorrow evening. You might want to stop by. It's important to stay." "Involved." The tone wasn't friendly. It was measured, a test. An invitation wrapped in exclusion. Erica nodded, murmured a polite, "thank you," and closed the door, the sound of the latch echoing louder than it should have. Her stomach twisted with unease. She'd seen that smile before, in job interviews that ended too quickly, in store aisles where she was watched more closely than others, in the faces of people who thought kindness was a favor, not a right. The next evening confirmed everything she feared. Brenda's house was a temple of wealth. Crystal chandeliers catching the soft light, framed family portraits smiling down in carefully curated perfection. When Erica stepped through the doorway, conversation dipped. Eyes turned. The air changed. She was the outsider, the one who didn't fit. Brenda introduced her with that same strained smile, her tone light but dripping with subtext. And this is Erica. She's new here. The words that followed weren't direct attacks, but they didn't need to be. Subtle remarks about maintaining property values, offhand comments about keeping the neighborhood safe, laughter that died when Erica tried to join in. She sat quietly, shoulders straight, eyes steady. Every word stung, but she'd learned long ago not to give pain an audience. By the end of the night, one thing was clear. They didn't want her there. Not in their meetings, not in their circle, not in their version of perfection. But Erica wasn't built for surrender. She had fought for far too long, for stability, for dignity, for her son, to let the whispers of the comfortable break her now. She left that meeting with her head high, her silence not a sign of defeat but a vow. She would stay. She would belong. Whether they liked it or not. Weeks crept by, and the neighborhood's smiles sharpened into daggers. What began as polite distance soon curdled into something colder, the kind of hostility that hides behind friendly waves and just a suggestion remarks. It started small. Brenda's voice, syrupy sweet, floated over one afternoon as Erica trimmed the front hedge. "You might want to cut those bushes down just a bit more," Brenda said, her tone bright but her eyes calculating. The HOA can be very particular about appearances. Erica paused, pruning shears trembling in her gloved hand. She swallowed the sting and smiled. "Thanks, Brenda. I'll take care of it." Inside, her patience was thinning. She had already spent her weekend working on the backyard. But Brenda's endless advice came like clockwork, each comment dressed as concern, each one chipping away at Erica's peace. And it wasn't just Brenda anymore. At the school drop-off line, the other parents avoided eye contact. Conversations would hush as she approached, their laughter turning brittle. Deeson noticed it too. "Mom," he said one morning, voice small, "some kids said my shoes are old. They said they look cheap." Erica's throat tightened. She recognized those words, not from the children, but from their parents. Prejudice had a way of trickling down, poisoning even the innocent. She knelt down, tying his laces with steady hands. "You tell them these shoes are fast," she whispered, smiling through the ache. "Faster than theirs." Deeson giggled, but the light in his eyes flickered. Then came the neighborhood block party, a test of belonging she hadn't asked for, but refused to avoid. She baked her mother's cornbread recipe, the one that tasted like home, like generations of love and survival. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. As she set it down among platters of catered sushi and imported cheeses, the air grew heavy. Whispers coiled through the crowd. "I mean, who even eats that?" one woman murmured, glancing her way. Erica pretended not to hear. Brenda offered a smile that was almost pity, then turned back to her friends. The laughter continued. Her dish sat untouched. "Let's just go, Mom," Deeson whispered, tugging at her sleeve. His eyes glistened, his small hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Erica nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She lifted the tray, still full, and walked away, each step echoing with quiet humiliation. But the pain wasn't for herself. It was for him, her boy, whose bright laughter was dimming day by day under the weight of their cruelty. That night, she found him sitting on the bathroom floor, trying to scrub a grass stain from his sneakers. "I just want them to like me," he whispered, voice breaking. Erica's heart shattered quietly. She pulled him close, holding him against her chest. Her resolve solidified into something unbreakable. They would not destroy what she had built. They would not crush his spirit or hers. From that night on, Erica changed her approach. She smiled wider even when the looks burned. She joined the PTA, volunteered for school events, showed up at every community meeting. Not to please them, but to prove that dignity doesn't require permission. Still, the attacks evolved. Brenda, relentless as ever, began to push harder. A new HOA petition appeared, conveniently requiring all homeowners to install uniform fencing. A rule designed with one purpose: to strain Erica's already fragile budget. Then came the cruelest blow. One morning, Erica stepped outside to find a note taped to her windshield. The words were scrawled in thick black marker. "This eyesore doesn't belong here. No signature. No courage behind the hatred. Just cowardice on paper." She looked up, and there was Brenda, standing on her porch, coffee in hand, pretending not to notice. Erica's eyes burned, but no tears fell. Not this time. Instead, she turned that anger into motion. She picked up extra shifts at work, scrubbing tables until her hands ached, saving every spare dollar. She washed, waxed, and repaired that old Honda until it gleamed like new. She scraped together enough money to build that fence, plank by plank, with her own hands. By the time it was done, the fence stood straight and clean. Her car shone proudly in the driveway, and for the first time since she arrived, Brenda had nothing to comment on. But victory has a way of provoking envy. Erica's quiet strength unsettled them. The Hendersons couldn't understand how someone they tried so hard to break kept rising higher, and rise she did. At work, her determination caught her manager's eye. When a new project opened, one requiring creative problem-solving and leadership, Erica volunteered. She stayed up late after putting Deason to bed, perfecting every presentation slide, every report. Within months, she was promoted. The raise didn't just pay bills, it bought breathing room, dignity, and hope. Her newfound confidence rippled into other parts of her life. She began taking online business classes, studying late into the night. From a small hobby, making natural skincare products in her kitchen, grew an online shop that slowly began to thrive. Orders came in one by one. Her name started to circulate, not as the woman who didn't belong, but as someone building something real. The neighborhood watched in silence. Even Brenda, especially Brenda. Because while they had walls of wealth, Erica had something stronger: resilience, and that kind of strength can't be bought. Success has a strange sound when it finally arrives, soft, steady, almost disbelieving. For the first time in years, Erica woke each morning not to worry, but to peace. Her extra income went where it was needed most, paying off old debts, repairing what had once been broken, breathing life into the home that had once embarrassed her neighbors. Bit by bit, her transformation became impossible to ignore. The whispers didn't stop. Not at first. Brenda and her polished circle still gossiped behind shaded sunglasses, but their voices lacked conviction now. Because the story had changed, the house that once drew disapproving glances now gleamed with fresh paint. Flower beds bursting with color, and a hand-built fence that stood straighter than any rule the HOA had ever written. The faded Honda was gone, replaced by a new car, modest, but hers. The same driveway that once carried judgment now carried pride. At school, Deason walked taller. The teasing stopped when he showed up wearing a brand new pair of sneakers, bought with Erica's first real paycheck from her growing business. One afternoon, he burst through the door, his grin wide and unstoppable. "Mom, Coach said I'm starting point guard next game." Erica dropped what she was doing and pulled him into her arms. The joy in his voice was everything she had fought for. Proof that all those sleepless nights and bitter tears had meant something. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was thriving. The victories continued in quiet, beautiful waves. During a PTA meeting, the same space where she had once sat invisible, Erica stood tall and proposed a program to provide supplies and after-school care for underprivileged students. The room, filled with the same faces that had once dismissed her, erupted in applause. The same mouths that once whispered now spoke her name with respect. From the corner, Brenda clapped, her smile tight, her pride cracked. But she clapped nonetheless. For Erica, it wasn't about revenge. Every triumph was a step out of the shadow of their judgment, a declaration that she had never needed their approval to shine. Life wasn't perfect, but it was finally hers. And then the silence began. At first, it was just absence. Fewer cars in the Henderson driveway. No more parties spilling with laughter and champagne. Then came the whispers, rumors that grew louder with each passing week. Tom Henderson's investment firm, they said, was being investigated for fraud. The perfect family's empire had been built on borrowed time. Soon, the truth spread like wildfire through the tidy cul-de-sacs. The mansion that had once hosted charity galas and HOA meetings now sat dark at night. Brenda's Instagram, once a daily gallery of wealth and curated happiness, went quiet. No photos, no smiles. Just silence. When the for sale sign appeared on their lawn, the neighborhood gasped, not out of sympathy, but fascination. Their luxury cars vanished, replaced by an aging sedan that seemed too ordinary for their towering home. And Brenda, the woman who once moved like she owned every square inch of the street, now avoided eye contact, her shoulders hunched, her steps slower. Erica noticed. But she said nothing. She didn't need to. The universe had its own way of balancing scales. Days later, as the sun began to set, Erica stood watering her garden, the same garden she'd once been mocked for planting. The sound of her hose was the only noise until she heard soft footsteps approaching the fence. Erica. Brenda's voice was fragile, stripped of its old confidence. She looked smaller somehow, hair unstyled, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She wrung her hands as if trying to hold her composure together. I was wondering if we could talk? Erica turned off the hose, set it down gently, and faced her. What's on your mind? Brenda hesitated, her voice trembling. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but things haven't been good for us. Tom's firm, well, there's been trouble. We're starting over. Erica said nothing, her eyes calm, unreadable. Brenda took a breath, desperation leaking into every word. We heard about your business, how you've been growing it. You've done something incredible, Erica. I was wondering if you'd consider partnering with us. I have contacts, or I used to. Her voice trailed off. The request hung in the air like smoke, absurd, fragile, human. Erica folded her arms, the corners of her mouth tightening. Partner with you? She repeated, her tone quiet but firm. After everything? Color flushed across Brenda's cheeks. I know we weren't kind to you. I regret that. I truly do. We're just trying to make things right. For a long moment, the only sound was the rustle of the trees between them. Memories surged through Erica's mind. The whispers, the notes, the humiliation, the quiet tears of her son. But in Brenda's eyes, she saw something new. Not arrogance, not pity, but humility. The kind that comes only after losing everything. She didn't answer that night. Instead, she thought. About Deason, about strength. About the lessons she had spent years teaching, that real power isn't found in revenge, but in restraint. The next morning, she called Brenda over. The woman who once commanded rooms now sat quietly at Erica's kitchen table, wearing a plain blouse instead of designer silk. Erica poured 2 cups of coffee and took a seat across from her. Before we talk business, she began softly, I need to know one thing. Why now? Why come to me? Brenda's voice shook. Because I was wrong, she said finally, her eyes glistening. I judged you because I thought struggle meant failure. I thought wealth made me better. But now, I know how it feels to be on the outside, to be looked at like you don't belong. And it hurts. The words hung heavy between them. For the first time, Erica saw Brenda not as an enemy, but as a woman unraveling under the weight of her own lessons. It would be easy to say no out of anger, Erica said finally, but bitterness only chains you to the past. I built everything I have from the ground up, without help. And I intend to keep it that way. What I need now isn't a partner. It's honesty. If you really want to make things right, start there. Be genuine. With yourself first. Brenda's lips trembled. I don't deserve your kindness, she whispered. But thank you. Truly. When she left, something subtle shifted in the air. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of something that might grow into it. Over time, Brenda changed, slowly, quietly. She began showing up at community events, not to lead, but to serve. She picked up chairs after fundraisers, handed out flyers, volunteered at food drives. No spotlight, no applause, just effort. And one day, Deason came home bursting with excitement again. "Mom, guess what? They're building a new basketball court at the rec center. Mrs. Henderson helped raise the money for it." Erica paused, setting down her cup of tea. A soft smile crossed her face, because that's the thing about redemption. It rarely announces itself. It blooms in silence, in small acts of grace from the least expected places. In the end, Erica chose forgiveness, not because Brenda deserved it, but because Erica refused to let bitterness claim her spirit. Her power wasn't in what she endured, but in how she transformed it. And that's what she wanted others to see. That resilience isn't only about surviving pain. It's about rising above it with dignity and compassion. Because sometimes, the greatest victory isn't revenge. It's peace. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold truths.